People pay good money to see this movie. When they go out to a theater, they want cold sodas, hot popcorn, and no monsters in the projection booth.
Everyone pretend podcasting isn't boring.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
Hiram Jaffe's world is just like yours. A little unreal.
Dolly! You listen to that noise? Move.
Some people think move is about moving.
Like setting something into motion, Dolly, something I don't understand.
Some people think move is about the system. Breaking down.
You lousy kids, no respect for anything.
Some people think move is about today's plastic culture.
What is that supposed to mean?
We believe in a philosophy of joy and laughter, not in self-recrimination and rebuke.
No shit.
Some people think move is about the battle of the sexes.
Doctor, I don't think my husband understands me.
Is your wife Zoroastrian?
No, Jewish.
Ida, break the glass.
Isn't that disgusting?
I don't know what it is. I haven't made love to Dolly in months. I just can't.
God, I think you really are going crackers.
Hey, look, this is the third time. And you better tell me you love me or something. Hey, look at that. You've got green paint spots all over your chest. You've even got it on your... Oh, that's kinky.
You gonna try something funny?
I might.
When we start picking up weird balls, I come for you first.
Some people think move is just an entertaining comedy.
Who is this?
But some people think move is more than that.
Damn it! I don't need this.
In short, some people think, and some people don't. And some people just move. Move. The movie with a message.
Welcome to the projection booth. I'm your host, Mike White. Join me once again is Mr. Mike Sullivan.
Hey, it's great to be back again. The last time we talked was when we talked about the Finks, and that was like over 4 years ago. So it's great to be back on the podcast.
Got another winner for you, Mike.
Always a winner with me. Yeah.
Also back in the booth is Ms. Emily Intravia.
Hey, good to be back.
Our month of looking at rare, lost, or underseen films continues with one from Stuart Rosenberg, 1970's Move. The film stars Elliott Gould as Hiram Jaffe, an uptight Zoroastrian who's about to make a move with his wife Dolly, played by Paula Prentiss. He embarks on what might be a fantasy about a girl played by Geneviève Waïte while navigating New York in the late 1960s. This film was unavailable for decades, though it can now be found on the 20th Century Fox archive label. I think that it's mostly readily available as a bootleg transfer from a 16mm archive print, which omits some nudity. I think it might actually be a TV version of it. Ironically, it's a friend of mine who's been on the show before who did that transfer, and he will remain nameless, but that's probably the version that you've seen. So, Emily, was this a first-time watch for you seeing Move, and what did you think, ma'am?
So 100% a first-time watch, and I did not get any nudity, so I don't know who I should be mad about for that. I knew nothing about it going in, and within the first 5 minutes, there was a lot of, oh, this is really relevant, and there are things I connect to here. I am in the middle of moving. I used to live in New York City, and I was a dog walker for a period of time back when I was a young woman in my 20s. I have... Thankfully, that is just about where the similarities end between me and Elliott Gould. I'm not quite as hairy. And if I was married to Paula Prentiss, I think I would treat her a little better. But we'll get into all those details, I'm sure.
And Mike, how about yourself?
I found out about Move. It was the very first issue of Shock Cinema I ever picked up, which I think was issue 11. And that movie is always intertwined with like Shock Cinema and myself. And Steve ripped that movie apart. So it was, when did I see that? About 97. So I've been avoiding this movie for close to 30 years. And the only reason I sat down and watched is you asked, you want to go on the projection booth, talk about it. So I'm not sure, but that's the only way I ever watched it. And it was actually better than I expected. Not good, but better than I expected.
I saw this film years and years ago. I saw it on that questionable transfer, and I'm like just now seeing the decent print of it that the 20th Century Fox put out. When I put this on the list, I did not know that this had ever been available. And I have a search on eBay for Elliott Gould, which is a weird flex. Like, I've been trying to work on this.
It's your brand. It fits.
Yeah, I've been trying to work on the book about Elliott Gould since 2010, 2011, right around the same time that I started up this show. Yeah, I just am constantly checking for things. And then it was only a month ago that I started to see Move on DVD come up on those searches. And I thought for sure this is just a bootleg, but no, it's legit. This is a real thing. They actually did put this out. So it goes against this month of hard to find films because now you can buy it. You can get it right on Amazon. But when you go out and you look for it, you can still just find tons of people selling bootlegs of it. It's difficult to even find the link for the real deal. And then, like I said, hadn't seen the non-16 print of it. And so when I read about this movie and was reading about, oh yeah, then Elliott Gould imagines this woman with 3 breasts, I'm just like, what? What are you talking about? And then last night when I was rewatching it, and he comes into his apartment and there's his neighbor lady there, Andrea, I think her name is, and there's a weird cut. And I was like, oh, that's probably where the nudity is. He's probably seeing her with 3 breasts, but instead it's just her from like the neck up. I'm not sure what all else we're missing. I know somebody talked about some Paula Prentiss boobage as well, but I'm more concerned about Paula Prentiss's false eyelashes and eye makeup more than anything else.
In the bathtub, no less. I guess that must be some pretty good glue that you put on for that kind of thing, but it's impressive. Now that you say that about the editing for nudity, I feel like that also makes the version I saw, it gives it a little bit of a pass on some things, because the pacing, and I think this is probably the biggest issue the film has, because there's things I really like about it. It's different. It's weird. It is a movie that I think when you get to that final scene, it makes you want to go back and rewatch it with a completely different view of what you're actually seeing. But throughout, I think there's this issue of tone and pace and understanding exactly what you're supposed to. It's not even just, oh, what's real, what's fantasy. Is this funny? Should I be laughing? Or is this going on long? Is it intentional too? And some of that now, I wonder, some of it could have just been a lot of editing choices that had to get made because of MPAA and such.
My issue with the film was I could never tell if we're supposed to be on Gould's side or we're supposed to consider him an asshole and a joke. It seems like the film can never, like that one scene with him and Geneviève Waïte, where they're having like this, the film, I feel like film thinks it's a deep conversation, but it's just 2 like insufferable morons, born laying deep thoughts, 2 like college kids just trying to impress each other. And actually, that's the one part where I'm just like, I think I hate this movie. I was on the fence. And then that scene, I was just like, oh, Christ.
I think that's a really good point. And that was definitely in the beginning of the film. The problem I had with it was just this very basic, and part of it is knowing, okay, it's 1970. So these are the movies we're making, right? We're making movies about like men going through midlife crises, and that's going to always happen, but it's going to evolve a little differently. And it's something that I know for me coming to a movie like this, immediately I'm like, dude, you're married to Paula Prentiss, who's awesome, who is funny, who is sexy, who is gorgeous, who seems to be able to handle you. Like you have a good apartment, you have a dog. there's a lot about it that you're just like, oh, insufferable in terms of this sort of, I'm not going to feel bad for you or feel good when you're now maybe cheating on your wife. But I feel, and I don't know that the movie gave it that support, or if it just, in my brain, I had to make the decision that, no, we're not supposed to, I think, at least for me, it never felt like I'm supposed to feel bad for him and root for him to get there. It felt more, oh no, we know, even he knows that he's ridiculous for feeling all these things. That he looks at his wife and he knows, I don't deserve, like, I can't have sex with you. That's my problem, not, I'm not yours. And I think once you, as like the audience member, make the decision that the film isn't on his side necessarily, it's much more enjoyable.
Yeah, I can see that. And yeah, I can agree with you that I think somewhere inside of himself, he does know that he's being ridiculous. He does know that he's just such a martyr for so much of this and just going through this midlife crisis. And she wants to have a baby. I don't want to have a baby. There's no way that I'm ready to have a baby. I'm trying my best to get these plays sold and no one is buying my work. And instead I have to write pornography. This is what his profession is. It took me a while to figure that one out.
Yeah, they don't make that easy to guess.
No, and that also gives us one of the big clues towards the end when you're talking about the Geneviève Waïte scene where it's Paula Prentiss, Dolly, reading a story and reading a line about, do you know anything about electricity? And then in the next scene, Geneviève Waïte comes up and says the exact same line. I was like, oh, okay, we are in this. Because, yeah, there's no line to tell us when we're moving from reality to fantasy. Sometimes no line when it comes to moving backwards and forwards in time. Boom, we're back at his wedding. And then boom, we're out of that. And there's no real signal, no change in the way that the film looks.
There's no visual cue. There's no sound cue. And it feels like a mistake on the part of the movie because I think that also, like, reading through some of the reviews, it was definitely something that turned a lot of viewers off. There's an element of that I feel like I don't know how it could have been done. Like, I don't think that decision was necessarily the wrong decision. I think you could have done this entire movie still with, you never really know what's real and what's not, but it's done in a way where it's not so abrupt when it pulls back into, I guess that didn't happen, but we're moving on to the next scene. Keep going. So it's just an odd choice. And I know that was something I guess that Elliott Gould talked about both in the interview and in some other things that you can read on it, was that it felt like, as it Stuart Rosenberg is the director, that he didn't fully come to this as a comedy with his mind made of how he wanted to do it. And I guess what they always say about comedy, it's about choice, right? You commit to, this is our sense of humor, this is how we're conveying it. And it's hard to know who understood what the line was for where the comedy was. So it just makes it strange, which I dig as a kind of, this is unlike anything, but it also means it doesn't quite work.
Mike, I know, because I actually was looking at the Goodreads reviews of this today, and I noticed you're one of them for the. So how different I should have read the book. I didn't read the book. How different is the book from the movie? Does it have the sort of fantasy sequences in the book? Is that an element in that?
It has been probably a decade since I've read it. I started rereading it the other night, and it just feels very much like this movie. So much of this opening scene, you're like, oh, yeah, not the necessarily him getting run over by the steamroller. And the effect that I really like is right at the beginning when everyone's moving backwards, but he's moving forwards. That kind of stuff isn't in there.
Yeah.
I love that. That's such a great way to start a movie.
It is. It's really nice. It's so European. That's the thing about this film is just that, like you, I dig the idea of moving back and forth in time and the fantasy, the reality. We've talked about Night Porter or The Conformist or these movies where you just kind of don't have this sense of time. I can't remember the Italian editor's name that would do that so well. I think he even worked on like The Passenger, some Antonioni stuff. But yeah, as far as going back to the book, I think it's pretty darn similar to it. But yeah, I didn't have a chance to make my way all the way through. I tried to dig it out the other night, I found that I've got it on hardcover, tried to grab that, and then I remembered, oh yeah, you also have it on paperback. So I'm a complete idiot when it comes to having multiple copies of things. So I started reading that paperback the other day, the one with Gould and Prentiss on the cover. So that was nice. But yeah, the hardcover is definitely different design and everything. And yeah, real tragic story about the writer.
It's easy, I think, to always read into if a man writes a novel about a man having a midlife crisis, it's very hard not to read into that as, okay, this makes sense. This is what he was going through. And I did not get a chance to read the novel, so I don't know how much of that comes through. It certainly adds an element of weight to it because I never felt Hiram was suicidal or he was suffering definitely from probably depression, anxiety, and other things that are just there, but in a very kind of common man of his age in New York kind of way. But then when you have that added, knowledge of the author's very sad end, it does reframe it a little bit.
He died. I don't remember how soon after this. He committed suicide, I should say, not just died, but
it was a year after the movie came out. It was 1971. Yeah.
I don't imagine that the bad reviews in the movie probably helped him out either.
Because it had to be a very personal thing for if you're a novelist and you've written a novel that is maybe close to your life. I don't know. But it feels like it is such an the movie is so interior, right? This is a man going through a whole lot of mental gymnastics and worries of, here's my life and I am unhappy and I am this and I'm not ready for this and I'm not ready to be a father and I'm not ready to move it 3 blocks down. So then to have that then put on screen and then released to, from what I understand, very bad press can't be a good feeling.
Nona felt a little bit like some of the critics were lying in wait for this as far as, we are tired of Elliott Gould. And I was like, get ready, folks, because Gould's only made like a handful of films at this point in his career. You're going to get a whole lot more Gould here coming forward. And some of these are going to be a lot worse than this movie.
So what do you think that is as far as him just being such a success in a mold that was not typical, that he didn't look like a leading man of that time, but it's that era where you have him and Dustin Hoffman and other guys that would not have been matinee idols 10 years earlier. Was it just a matter of the press just waiting for a failure? Was it that kind of thing that happens still today, certainly?
Feels like it, because I remember Gene Siskel's review was something like, I'm tired of seeing Elliott Gould. And it wasn't even, I'm tired of seeing Elliott Gould play this type of character. It was just, I'm tired of Elliott Gould. I was like, holy shit, Gene.
It'd be so mean.
How? Because at that point, first it was like Night the Arrayed Minsky as the Friedkin. Then it was like Bob and Carol, Ted and Alice. Then it was MASH before this? Was it earlier in the year? So how could you be tired of someone after just 3 movies?
Plus, there was also Getting Straight.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so, in 1970, he had 4 movies come out. He had I Love My Wife, Move, Getting Straight, and MASH, and in the opposite order.
Was he still married to Barbra Streisand at this time?
No, I think that was over by this point. I think that was over before Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, but I'm not sure. I think that ended in 68.
Because I wonder how much, and the different era, obviously, but there was still Page Six, and there was still the gossip columns, magazines, on all those things that should come with being a movie star as opposed to being just an actor. And I wonder how much of that fed into it, because that's certainly still true today, of if you don't like a celebrity for the way they dress on the red carpet, then you're just waiting for them to make a flop, because it gives you that schadenfreude that so many were laying in wait with.
Yeah, like me and Timothy Chalamet.
One day, just wait for it.
For years, I thought this was like the Matilda era, like the Whiffs era, when it was like the career was like in the downswing. But a year after this, didn't he do like a Bergman movie? So many times I've said, this guy had like a Travolta-esque taste for projects, like an almost self-destructive taste for projects. But this was during a period where it was just like pretty much every movie, he was like knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, 71, you've got The Touch, which you mentioned, and then you've got Little Murders. 73, you've got The Long Goodbye. He still has yet to do California Split, and what's the other real good one back that I liked? I like Capricorn 1. I really love The Silent Partner. But yeah, there's some uneven stuff in there, like A Bridge Too Far. I'm not real hot on. Harry and Walter Go to New York. Not my favorite thing, but they're all interesting though. And they're interesting also in that way that you were talking about, Emily, when it comes to just what an atypical leading man he was. And especially in this movie where he's stripping down to the buff and just nothing is hidden. And you get to see all that back hair, which I don't know if that was like a thing back then or not, but I know now it's just like.
Remember, right? The Burt Reynolds Playboys around Playgirls around this time. And then that was probably another part of it was, and I mean, this was not my era, so I can't speak to it, but my understanding is he was like a raging sex symbol at the time. This happens every couple of years, what the mainstream determines sexy changes. But I think you had this moment of, no, women like a man who looks like a man, who maybe looks like their husband, who maybe looks like a man they actually are going to meet in real life. Whether he leaned into that or whether just everything leaned into it for him, there's that too. Like Gene Siskel, who is also by no means a conventionally attractive man, who now sees a fellow conventionally not expectedly attractive man being defined as that. And is there like that bitterness of, why not me? Is that a thing that happened? I think it still happens today with leading men and women.
Yeah, you're right. It was just a strange era because, even his best friend, Donald Sutherland, not conventionally attractive,
but incredibly sexy. And everybody understood it, and you couldn't explain it because you could take a guy that looks like him and put him next to him, and it didn't work. But yeah, it was this time period where I think, again, it's the 70s, it's the late 60s, minds are expanding in a lot of different ways, but that feels very specific to this, and that this movie doesn't present him as. I think he is very sexual in the movie, but also he is not having sex. He is saying he is having trouble having sex with his wife, who is a knockout. That he is seemingly very obsessed with it, but also can't get it up. It was more than once during the movie. It wasn't just positioning him as this Lothario. It was very much about this man who has sex and it's not working right now. And that sort of, I think, rawness maybe is something that can be alienating if you don't want to buy into it, then yeah, it maybe is uncomfortable to watch or not something you enjoy seeing. But there's another side to it that's very appealing because you're seeing somebody very raw and honest and naked in different ways, both literally and figuratively.
And I don't know when it was necessarily okay to be very Jewish because there were so many years, you think of so many stars from like the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, where they had to change their name. And it's just, that's way too Jewish sounding. Can't do it. But he is very Jewish. And to the point where, yes, he claims to be Zoroastrian in this film, but later on, he's just like, oh, no, I'm Jewish. And they cut to the wedding ceremony where he can't break that glass, just trying his best. And that was a nice little cameo in there from, what's the gentleman's name? The guy that played Henry Blake in the MASH movie. Very different Henry Blake from McLean Stevenson, but that was really nice to see him show up in here. Just that tiny little role.
Did you think that was a dream or do you think that was really his wedding?
That felt real to me. Just though I don't know, Roger Bowen is the gentleman's name. I don't know if the breaking of the glass was real or not. And then also, so I'm guessing, or there's Joe Silver is in this movie as a character named Oscar, and we see him a few times, and we see him in that wedding scene, and I want to say we see him in drag in that wedding scene, then we see him in drag at the party. I think that's supposed to be his brother in this movie.
It's confusing because Oscar is playing this, he could be his mother too, like they're playing it like his, but this is, I want to address this properly. It's a bit delicate because I think in some ways the movie is playing this as a joke, but I don't know, and I couldn't tell like what they were going for that. If it was like a genuine character, or if it was just a joke, but because why do the bit where Oscar's like mothering him? I don't want to put this the wrong way. I couldn't wrap my mind around.
This is definitely that end of the 60s era where it's, look at how wild everything is. You've got the wild party in here and all these strange characters. And I think I wrote in my notes, like, I'm waiting for Joe Buck or Stanley Sweetheart to show up in this scene because they would fit into this party for sure.
I was hoping it was going to turn into like Sweet Charity and have a whole dance sequence. But alas, because it opens. Again, I love the opening of this movie. I will always immediately click with a movie that has its own theme song. And so as soon as but it's a very catchy song. It's been in my head all day. It starts playing and it's a great sequence for the whole opening credit sequence. It's very literal. It is repeated throughout the film. And I would have taken a whole dance sequence to it, but what can you do?
Yeah, no, that stupid theme song, that got stuck in my head the first time I watched this movie.
Again. All day I've been singing it.
Oh, yeah, it's so freaking catchy. Thank you, Marvin Hamlish, for that one.
I was excited to see his name in the credits, too.
Yeah, he was on top of the world for a little bit there.
And that I can always only ever think of the line from Role Models of the kid who played McLovin in Superbad when on a rant he said, and why is everybody saying you look like a young Marvin Hamlish? Who the fuck is Marvin Hamlish? That's always in my head whenever I hear the name. I just think, who the fuck is Marvin Hamlish?
I'm not sure, again, with that party sequence, how much of that is supposed to be real either. Yeah, because there's the moment when he looks at the frog legs and then suddenly imagines all of these frogs just squirming around. I'm like, oh, okay. Are you freaking out? Did you take something? Are you dosed right now?
I think you could probably make a very real argument that really nothing that we see does happen, that it is him waking up one day, going to work with the dogs, and that's just about it. And then by the next day, he has played phone tag with his wife and he shows up and they're moved and that's it. Because so many of the little weird things that happen that seem catastrophic, or their stuff being stolen, or the gunfight in the hallway, and all of these like very big, the affair with the blonde, all these things that really seem to like, no, at the end of the day, he comes home and there's his wife and she's like, oh, we missed you. I was at the doctor's. Oh, okay. And they move on. And there's something to it of all of that being a fantasy. And I don't know if it is more powerful that way or not. If the idea that this entire time it's been him just running away from his own, because the end, I guess we're spoiling, correct? So the first scene, there's a little bit of a conversation about her wanting a baby and him just immediately, nope, why do women do that? I'm out of here. And it really doesn't literally come up again in the entire movie, right? There's no real obvious tellings that this is ultimately going to be him finding out that he's going to be a dad. And that last scene, he does, and as he knows it in the last scene, right? He sits down, he looks at his wife and he says, oh, so how far along are you? And he's okay with it. And this entire movie has maybe, I think you can very much interpret it as it him coming to terms with, I'm changing my life and this is, I thought moving 2 blocks is the biggest thing I can do. No, actually, I'm going to raise a child now.
The only other real reference to that is when he's out on the street and you see that diaper truck go by and you're like, oh, okay. So it's like haunting him.
Keep that in mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
The scene where he's on the horse with the cop, I feel like that was fantasy because one time I asked the cop if I could pet his horse and he told me no.
Oh, and this guy is a terrible dog walker. As a former dog walker, you hold on to your dogs, you hold on to those leashes, you don't let them just run around in Central Park and hope they come back to you. I was not happy with his dog walking abilities.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of his problem is that he's not selling his plays, which I imagine that's a Joel Lieber thing right there as far as the struggles of being a writer and also the struggles. So he did have 5 books that were published, one posthumously, but being a writer, it's not making a ton of money. And I think that one of Hiram's problems is that he's not the breadwinner in this family. And I guess that it's Dolly that's the breadwinner by her being the secretary to the psychiatrist. And yeah, she does use that psychiatrist language on him all the time. But I know it's very easy to get into that. My mom was a social worker, so I spent a lot of years saying, so how does that make you feel?
It's also the 70s, and it's the era when people were started talking like that anyway.
There is so much just 1960s, 70s, that kind of liminal space between the two decades where it's, what the hell are we doing here? What is happening here? Trying to get our lives together. It is really interesting that he's got so many different types of people around him, like that they actually have, and God forbid, I think it's an actual Indian person playing an Indian character. It's not just Peter Sellers and Brownface or something. And then to have an interracial couple with Andrea and I can't remember Ron O'Neill's character's name, but to have them right downstairs, and it's like they're not hiding that.
It's New York City. That is the reality of it.
I love it. Yeah, and then his landlord at the new place is definitely Latino, and his wife is as well. And yeah, it's very New York melting pot kind of thing, because then when we get Geneviève Waïte later on, who I think is 100% fantasy, but her kind of British, South African type accent comes through, and then I think it disappears for a minute, and then it comes back at one point.
I was trying to figure that out because I didn't realize at first that she was British, and then she wasn't. And I don't know if that was pure acting choice or if it was her covering an accent and doing a different take at each time. But it works in a way because it just adds into the, right, she is pure fantasy, and so everything about her should be a bit exaggerated and inconsistent.
I gotta ask, is this the first recorded incident of the gag where a psychiatrist falls asleep while the patient talks about their problems?
Excellent
or was that
question.
like an old joke prior?
That's a really good question. And yeah, I'm not sure, because it feels like it's got to be old as psychiatry itself.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think back to A Symphony in Slang, because I think the main character in that goes to a psychiatrist, but I can't remember if he falls asleep or if he just realizes that the guy's crazy and writes him a prescription or something. Because yeah,
It had to be a New Yorker cartoon. You had to start life as a New Yorker cartoon.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does feel like something that also that Woody Allen would be saying at the exact same time. I went to my Alice and I put him to sleep.
I was telling him about my dreams, and then I realized he was dreaming himself. I don't do a very good Woody Allen.
Oh, neither do I. And then also even the guy that takes over his apartment, who played, what was it, Cyrano Jones, right, on Star Trek? That's the only thing I recognize him from. But he is obviously gay, and they don't make a big deal about it. And it just feels, like you said, this is New York. This
would be New York. It's New York today, but it certainly was New York in 1970.
It's all DEI. We just have to put a stop to it.
Yes, obviously.
Yeah, and I just feel bad for Paula Prentiss in this whole movie the whole time, because he is just so unhinged.
She's an angel. I am a heterosexual woman, and I think she is just the sexiest creature in this movie. And I've always loved her. Stepford Wives, she is both great in it, and she is somebody that is one of those actors that you can tell is just a hoot to be around. I remember on the Stepford Wives DVD, there's a couple of interviews with her, and you want to be in the room with her talking about film, because she is funny, she is smart, she's very insightful. And in this movie, you're just like, are you okay with this? If you're okay with this, then it's fine. You seem to be amused by it, but you know that you can do better if you want to, right?
You might want to hit up your boss for some Prozac, which I don't think existed. So at least maybe some lithium at this
There's
point.
Something going. Ether, who knows?
Yeah, either works. Either or, yeah.
Why not? Also, I realized something that a connection I never made before is, how has nobody ever paired Paula Prentiss and Paulina Porzakova together in like a buddy comedy or something? Because they are, I think, around the same age. They are both these like tall, beautiful brunettes who have a very similar way of speaking and could play sisters so well in something, but a dream project for one day. Keep that in mind, everybody.
Then Gould acted with her sister in California Split. But I want to say her sister ended up committing suicide. She had a lot of problems. Sorry to bring down the conversation.
We should talk about the dogs.
We should talk about the dogs, and then I want to talk about the harassing calls from the mover. But yeah, do you want to talk about Murphy, the incredible Saint Bernard?
Murphy is a perfect, beautiful creature. Something I love. It's a very small choice in this movie, and I feel like it happens more than once, where other characters keep referring to the dog as a he. And it's just this tiny thing that like can easily demonstrate whether the person you're talking to cares about dogs or not. If you say, oh, it's actually a girl. Okay. He can't do that. It just immediately tells you something about, oh, okay, you're one of those people who doesn't actually care about all the details of my precious, perfect St. Bernard.
Misgendering is the new thing. People love to do it.
True.
Yeah.
But she's a good girl.
She's a very good girl. Better than those other dogs that he has to take to his apartment to try to chase away the quote-unquote robber.
He's a dog trainer also, and that's his... No, this guy, I don't know what they're paying him, but I would not give him good Business Bureau reviews. He is clearly also training the dogs, and I don't trust that at all. He's also using them as like guard dogs and lying to the owners, and I find that not respectable to the dog walking profession.
Yeah, showing up at their house at 8 o'clock at night to take them for a
one of his clients is a sex worker, and she's in the middle of work, and he comes and says, "Oh, I'll take your dog off your hands for a few." No, I know it's before we could like text somebody and say, "Hey, can I come over?" But still, the era when you ring doorbells, which is very strange.
Yeah, and that one dog just absolutely terrifies that poor woman in the hallway when he's picking up the second dog. She's just there with her lip quivering and crying. I'm like, oh, this is awful. You are such a bad person. No.
And he's not doing anything to diffuse the situation. He's a bad dog walker. I know I said I was okay with him, but maybe I really didn't like this character.
The way I saw this character is if Franz Kafka's The Trial was filtered through like a middle-aged man who has to wait too long at the Cheesecake Factory.
That's very true. There is a little Kafka to this, especially with the guy who keeps calling and taunting him and saying he's the mover, and also implying that he had sex with Paula Prentiss too. It's like, I tried out your wife. It's like, what? I don't know if that's the same guy that's the cop, but it sounds like the same voice to me. But you've got so many good character actors in this, and especially these older guys with the great voices.
And the woman, right? The woman who's married to the mover she's doing something. There's small choices in this movie that are really great when you see her and you never quite see her face and you hear her voice raspy. And what is she doing? She is fixing a run in her stocking with clear nail polish, which is just such a cheap thing that you have to do sometimes, but it just tells you a lot about this woman in this tiny little moment. And again, it's weird. It isn't real, but also what is it saying about him that this is the thing he's conjuring to make excuses for why he can't just move 3 blocks down, right? There's got to be this big operation against him that the movers are run by a psychopath who abuses his wife, and the cops are after him, and just these very elaborate scenarios to explain why just living life in New York City in 1970 is impossible, right? You can't be who you want to be because everybody's out to get you in this bizarre city, when really it's just probably the movers got delayed because the elevator wasn't working in the first building, so they're going to be late. And the reality is when you're moving from one apartment to another, yeah, you're supposed to be out in a day, and because the next guy's moving in and you're moving there, and now this is a big complication. Like, the Kafka-ness about it, I think, is very true. I guess I just wish it was all a little tighter or all a little clearer the movie wanted to do with that. Because I think I did a lot of work as I watched it and justifying where I thought why this decision and why this scene and why that choice. And I like what I came up with, but I don't know that everybody owes it to this movie to do that.
What I find so weird about this movie is because this was made during the With It era. And they get this guy he's like I don't want to say a hip young novelist, but he's tapping into some kind of zeitgeist, whether it's the Philip Roth zeitgeist or something else. They're going for something different. They're going for something cool. So who do they get to punch up the script? They get a guy who writes for the Carol Burnett Show and Mad Magazine. It's such a weird choice. It's this guy who, a few years later, was, I think, writing for a Bob Hope special. It's like, why did we go with Stanley Hart? There had to be like maybe a young Michael O'Donoghue, maybe a Doug Kenny, someone from the Harvard Lampoon. Like somebody could help.
Bruce Valanche.
I would take Bruce Valanche. He could do like solid zingers. I love Bruce Valanche. It's such an odd choice, Stanley Hart.
Yeah, I actually tracked him down and spoke with him for all of a minute. And I was trying to get him to talk about making this movie and working on this movie. It's just like, it was so many years ago. I have no idea. You know, I was like, all right, great. No, thank you. Yeah, and you'll hear an interview I did with Paula Prentiss in a little bit, and maybe it was 10 minutes long. So she also didn't have a whole lot of memories of it because it was, at this point, 55 years old. But I think I spoke with her probably 5 years ago.
55 years, and it's 1970. Everybody was doing a lot of drugs.
Talking about the guy who was moving them, I was so shocked to see that original trailer and that it ends with the disembodied hand of the mover coming out and flipping the bird at the very end of the trailer. I'm like, oh my God. And there's like boobs like crazy in the trailer as well. And I'm just like,
it's a red band trailer in 1970.
1970. I was like, wow, okay, I guess we're really going for the appealing to the youth market or something here. So yeah, that middle finger was cut out of the version that I was watching and that you guys watched. And then it's funny that you mentioned Doug Kenny because I just watched Funny Farm for the first time. And that whole beginning is all about the movers. They can't find the place and they're going to turn down here. And we're going to yell at these movers when they show up. And I think this movie handles that situation way better than Funny Farm did. But
I got to apologize to Mike. I know you have a Chevy Chase podcast. I haven't listened to it.
Oh, that's
I keep
fine.
Forgetting. And whenever I do an interview with anyone for Shock Cinema, if they work with Chevy Chase, I always try to get a Chevy Chase story. I never do. But I keep forgetting you have that podcast. I need to listen to it because I fucking love Chevy Chase. You know,
I don't know if you'll love my podcast then.
He's like the reverse of John Candy, where whenever you hear an actor describe working with John Candy, no matter what, whether they worked on like with him for 20 movies or in a scene for 5 minutes, everybody has nothing but they stop the interview and they're like, I have to tell you how he saved my life. Like this, he made everybody he touched better. And the reverse of everybody who's ever worked with Chevy Chase is like, oh, you mean that asshole? And there's always a story.
Always a story. Yeah. I'm kind of like that, but with Peter Falk, where I'm just like, tell me your Peter Falk story. I know you worked on Columbo like 35, 45, 55 years ago, but please tell me your Peter Falk story. And to a person, it's almost always, oh, he was so great to work with. He's such an actor's actor. And he was just would run lines with me before our scene. And I was just like, John Ashton was in one scene in a Columbo episode. And he's, oh, he was so great. He was running lines with me and all that. I'm like, yeah, that's wonderful. But
Mike, he's a literal angel. You've seen Wings of Desire. He is an angel. That is him playing himself in that movie because he is actually that.
All right. Yeah. No, fair enough. I give it to you. Yeah. I currently, as we're recording this, I do have the uncut version going on right now. And it is amazing how much
many
nudity.
Boobs?
Yeah. So many boobs, a lot of butts as well. They even have a shot of the woman he's talking to, the one from the moving company. And she's sitting there completely naked at one point. You just see her like from the side because yeah, she's very fragmented. You never really get a clear shot of her face. And then there's even a fantasy sequence where he's like pumping iron and fighting with her and stuff. And again, you see her from, I guess maybe you do see a face in that scene, but for a while you just see her from the neck down.
That makes sense because this is a sex comedy without sex. And that's what I think of most sex comedies as being. It's often a lot of nudity. It's often a lot of like innuendo and everything. But also often the characters don't actually ever have sex in it. And that's this. Maybe he has the fantasy where he does with the blonde at the end. But so much of this movie is about him being horny but him not being able to have sex. And then to get to the end, and there is a moment where he says, I haven't had sex with my wife in months. So when you get to the end, and it's like, how far along are you? 2 months. Is that because is it yours?
I was thinking the same thing.
Because when you say months, I feel like it usually means more than 2. You'll know very quickly if that baby is his based on what's on that back.
I love that the psychiatrist is played by the same guy who runs the tuna company from Mr. Mom, Graham Jarvis.
Graham Jarvis.
That was nice. I barely recognize him. He's so young in this movie. I thought a little bit of Superman the movie when it came to him shortchanging the blind guy and the way that the dog is barking at him when it comes to that. And again, I'm like, you should be way better with dogs.
A dog walker, there are times in my life when I look and I'm like, I graduated college and I couldn't find a job, so I was a dog walker. And what did that mean? That meant every day I woke up and I put on sweatpants and I exercised all day and I was outside in beautiful weather and I was playing with dogs. And that was my day. I was tan, I was fit, and I was playing with dogs all day long. That's a privilege. And you don't just let somebody, here's my dog, take them. No, they need to earn that privilege and you need to trust them with it. And I do not trust Elliott Gould with a dog.
The one real genuine laugh I had while I was watching this was when he turns on the shower and then he eventually opens up the curtain to get in and it's all of his stuff in the tub. Then he literally breaks the fourth wall, signals to the camera, come closer, and then he starts talking about how all of his life is in these boxes. And I'm just like, good. You need to part with your past. You are way too fucked up and you need to do something, dude, to get out of this.
And that's what happens, right? He goes to the cops. He decides the movers have stolen his stuff. And then while talking to the cop, he comes to that realization of, you know what? Maybe that's okay. Let it go. All I need is my wife and my dog and the baby I'm about to have. And okay, let's do it. And so this movie ends in a really pleasing, hopeful way where I was like oddly moved by the end of it, even though I had such a hard time understanding what I was supposed to feel throughout it. I really loved the ending, and I didn't get to rewatch the whole thing, but I jumped around a little bit and I made sure I just got to that last scene again. And I did. I found it a really beautiful way to close a very uneven film.
The one line that made me laugh, the only line that made me laugh, is when Gould says, "I don't mean to be unpleasant." Also, I like when he quoted Mao. That was odd.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with a very brief talk with Dolly herself, Paula Prentiss, and another chat with Elliott Gould. And we'll be back with both of those right after these brief messages.
Step into the gallery, dear friends, for horrors, nightmares, and spooky tales. This is the Midnight Viewing Podcast, and we like to discuss the frightening world of television horror anthologies. From Rod Serling's Night Gallery, to Tales from the Dark Side, to Hammer House of Horror and more. Father Malone, Chris Stashew, and Mike White will be your docents during this midnight viewing. Available wherever you download your podcasts from weirdingwaymedia.com.
You're listening to the Projection Booth Podcast. Dig it.
What do you remember about the film? This was still fairly early in your career. You'd done a lot of television before this, right?
Well, I did movies for a while because I was under contract to MGM. And I don't know if this was after my husband and I did our series or not. I did a series with my husband.
Was that He and She?
Yeah, And I don't know, was Move after that?
I think it was. I think He and She was like 67 to 68, and Move, I want to say, came out in 1970.
Yes, that very well could have been. I hardly remember a thing, except I know Geneviève, I think she called me out here, and later, this was after the movie, I think she called and said if she could rent my apartment in New York, and that was one thing that I remember. And Elliott was just, wonderful. It was fun. We did go naked and get into a pool together, so that was fun. I mean, a tub. Elliott is just a wonderful person. He's so in the present. if you talk to him, there's no, he doesn't leave you in a conversation, and he's always right with you, whatever you're talking about. He has a real gift for being with people. He really does. He's a wonderful fellow. Very sweet, yeah. So that was fun. But yeah, it was those kind of couples angst kind of movies, wasn't it? There was kind of a slew of those for a while. Yeah, it was fun. But I remember the fellow, didn't he? Am I wrong about the author?
That he committed suicide, I believe. Yeah,
he did, didn't he? I don't know, but whatever was going on in his mind, he got in the script, which is probably the 60s, the drugs and things like that. Yeah. The drugs and the divorces and no marriage or whatever, that kind of was in the air.
Did you meet the writer, Joel Lieber?
I think I did meet him, yes. I think, actually, I might be wrong about this. You'd actually have to check with my husband, but I think he came up to our apartment when we were on West End, and he had been out in the rain, and he handed that script to us. Now, that may be something that I have remembered about not Joel, but it seems to me that's what happened. And I can't remember. I think we were living in New York then, that I was able to. It was filmed in New York, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very much a New York story.
Yeah. The director, Stuart, used to live down the street from me here in California, but he no longer lives in that same house. Yeah, it was just one of those kinds of movies of that time. I wish I could remember more things to tell you.
Well, hey, it was only, 44 years ago, so...
Was it? My God almighty, you're kidding me. You are kidding me. That's before I had children. Oh, my goodness gracious. Well, we see Elliott once in a while, too, out here. Yeah, but it's always nice, It's always nice. Gee whiz, has it been that long? I can't get over how wonderful it is when you reach your 70s. I mean, I'm 76, and I can't get over how fantastic it is. I had no idea it was going to be so wonderful. That's the truth. And I had the good fortune of being in movies for a little while there, so that was fun. But it's just wonderful. You begin to claim your life. Do you know what I mean? And to see it as what you did, which is a really interesting thing. So that never makes me feel bad. It's just amazing, kind of. Do you know? It's kind of an astonishing thing that occurred. But it's not a sad thing at all. Not at all. It's wonderful to have been in the movies.
Yeah, sometimes I'll talk to people and they'll just be like, "Why are you asking me about this movie? This was so many years ago."
Oh, no. I think it's just some sort of a miracle that it happened at all. I really do, yeah. It's just amazing. And I just was able to enjoy that movie career as, a way to be. I think we're all kind of defining ourselves as we grow up and, get into stuff like marriage and career and stuff like that. So it just helps you get to know yourself a little bit better. And to be, more charitable because you're more human, something like that. I don't know. But no, that doesn't make me feel bad at all.
Yeah, I was curious. You've been in so many different types of films. When people recognize you for stuff with your movie career, what do they tend to gravitate to?
It's sort of different things. Some have seen the movie with Rock Hudson, or some have seen The Black Marvel. I played a cop with there was Joseph Wambaugh. And some people in Where the Boys Are, it's been done again. But some people have seen the original. And some people think of, I know because my son was 3 months old and now he's 40, Stepford Wives. That was an interesting one, yeah, That was an interesting one for people to think about. Oh, and let's see, we did Catch-22, because the people who are interested in that, remember that movie. Yeah, that's what they think about. And, my friend Dolores Hart, she was in Where the Boys Are, and she is a Mother Superior in Bethlehem, Connecticut. So as long as I've been married, which is 52 years, she's been in the monastery. She's a Mother Superior there. So yeah, it's so life has got all kinds of things to offer you, and to be having been in the movies is one of them. It's just a lot of fun. Yeah, it just is a lot of fun, and people do think of those of where the boys are, and man's favorite sport and things like that. Yeah, they really do. What's New Pussycat? If you're kind of New Yorker, you think of that because it's a Woody Allen movie.
Yeah, I tend to gravitate to The Parallax View.
Yeah, I got wiped out in the first 5 minutes, but it was an excellent part and a lovely, fun time.
And I'm actually a big fan of Saturday the 14th.
Well, you know what? I broke my arm when we were doing that. So in a lot of scenes, my arm is up. Either my arm is, up at an angle like a broken arm, and I'm either holding the groceries or holding a coat or something like that. And then there's this scene where it's walking in sleepwalking, and only one arm is up. That was fun because they used that kind of fog stuff, Oh gosh, yeah, that was fun. We were very surprised that people like that. Oh yeah, we've got a poster from that, so our kids have seen. We've got posters from some of our stuff. That's all right. That's all right, Wally. It's okay. So anyway, yeah, that's fun. Oh, I'm glad. Thank you. It was interesting because very recently I talked to Julie Corman, and she and her husband, Roger Corman, produced that. So, so we have our poster of that, which was fun.
Well, I won't belabor you with any more questions about Move, because I don't know if there's anything else you might remember from that shoot.
I don't think so, but that's just, it was enjoyable, a nice bathtub and nice friends on the set, things like that.
Oh, and there's that big dog in that movie, too, wasn't there?
Yes, I remember, because I've got my little dog here, and I remember that little dog, that big dog. That's right, yeah.
Well, hey, thank you so much for your time tonight. This has been great.
Okay, and thank you so much. I enjoyed talking.
1970, that was a crazy year for you. You were doing so much stuff all at one time, it felt like.
I mean, the first movie that I had participated in as an actor was called The Confession, and it starred Ginger Rogers and Ray Milland, and we made it on the island of Jamaica. That's the first movie that I did. Then the second movie that I did was The Night They Raided Minsky's. That was with Jason Robards and Brett Eklund and Bert Lahr and a great cast. It was directed by William Friedkin. I believe it was produced by Yorkin and Lear, by Yorkin and Norman Lear. These are sequential. And then the third film was Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice with Natalie Wood and Robert Culp and Diane Cannon, which was the first film that Paul Mazursky directed, and he and his partner, Larry Tucker, wrote it, and it was produced by Mike Frankovich. It was a very popular film. And actually, Diane Cannon and I were each nominated for Academy Awards for supporting actors for that picture. And then the fourth picture I did was MASH, of which was quite popular. And that was directed by the great Robert Altman. And it's the first time we met and the first time I worked with Bob. And it's when I first met Donald Sutherland, who was a great mate. Also, Robert Duvall. And, my goodness. There were the two of us. And then the girls, of course, Sally Kellerman, Joanna Flug. That was an amazing experience. And then I believe the next picture, I believe it was Move. That's what we're talking about, right?
Right, yeah. I wasn't sure if Getting Straight was next or Move was next.
Oh, you are right. You are right. You are absolutely right. let me take another bite of this delicious piece of bread and butter that I have. It is that I auditioned for, entitled A Way of Life, which was written by Murray Schuskow. And I was fired. I'd never been fired before. It was shocking to me. And then I was asked to meet Robert Altman, and he cast me in MASH. And what he said to me is, how would you like to play the American Southerner? And I said, all I want to do is work. Because I had to read it first. He wanted me to read it. If you haven't cast this Trapper John character, I've got what you need for it. I got the juice. I've got the energy. And so he cast me. And here we are. Oh, my God. And then what we're here to talk about, what I think was the next picture. Was my next picture Move? Move. Oh, my God. It was interesting. Move. Oh, I believe we did it in New York. Stuart Rosenberg directed it. And he had directed Cool Hand Luke. I think he directed Cool Hand Luke before Move. And he had also directed Murderers Incorporated, which was the first time that I actually saw Peter Falk, who was incredible. They hired me. The producer was Pandro S. Berman. And, the cameraman was Bill Daniels. I got a smile on my face. It was a difficult picture. It didn't work because they thought they had a comedy, different, and it was funny. But it was about someone struggling for balance in the environment and balance in the world. Dick Benjamin's wife, Paula Prentiss, played my wife in it. And then some of it was like fantasy, and you don't necessarily know what's real and what's fantasy. And this wonderful South African actress, Geneviève Waïte, who had been married to John Phillips from the Mamas and the Papas, she was in it. And there were other wonderful elements in it. And that's what we're going to talk about.
They always say to not work with children or animals, but you had a lot of animals in there, especially that huge St. Bernard.
She wasn't an animal. She was a huge St. Bernard. She was a doll. I played Hiram Jaffe, a guy. I'd have to watch it and read it again. Hiram Jaffe was a dog walker, and he lived a very fertile fantasy life, being that his real life was rather suppressed. And that's the character that I played. And there's a great character star in it by the name of David Burns. And he played the doorman, I think, to the apartment house that I lived in. And I think David Burns was originally in the first stage production of Hello, Dolly. And he was just great. And also the guy who played my brother, I think his name was Silver, Joe Silver. He was great. And there was a lot of dogs in it because I was a dog walker.
Well, it was nice to see Ron O'Neal show up in there, just that small role, but he was great in it.
I mean, he's an African-American star. And we shot it, like I said, all in New York and on the Upper West Side. That had great meaning to me since I'm a New Yorker.
Yeah, I really like the street scenes, and just to capture New York City in late 60s, 1970, it looked fantastic.
And I told you that Bill Daniels was our cinematographer, and I was told that he was Greta Garbo's favorite. He was from really vintage, and he was just it's so amazing to work with artists like that. There was only one Bill Daniels, just like there was only one Greta Garbo.
You also shared a lot of scenes with John Larch as that mounted policeman.
And the horse, the mounted policeman, he made me a little nervous. I had to ride on his horse. And I remember I wore a sweater. I may have also I also had like a prototypical moccasin on my feet. John Larch. He was interesting. My mother knew him. I think my mother liked him.
What was it like working with Paula Prentiss?
Oh, great. She's brilliant. I loved working with her. And they took quite a few photographs of the three of us, Paula, Geneviève, and me, having a bath. And that was rather provocative, but it was very comfortable and charming. And it was great working with Paula and Geneviève.
Did you have to strip down completely for that painting scene?
Yes. I don't mind. I mean, I'm not, when I say I don't mind, I trust the people I work with. So for Hiram to be painting and to strip down, I also would have to look at the picture again, because invariably each shot brings me back to what we were doing. Each shot, even no matter how long it takes. This picture was made more than 50 years ago, and it didn't quite work. It was a bit abstract, but here we are talking about it, and there was something good-natured about it. Also, Alan and Marilyn Bergman, and I think David Shire may have done some lyrics, wrote in I think it was Marvin Hamlish with the Bergmans wrote original music and lyrics for this picture. I know Alan Arkin, who's not in it, he liked it a lot.
Yeah, I've seen some people compare it to Little Murders.
Well, because of the streets of New York, but we are going for a comedy, going for amusement. Little Murders, the script by Jules Feiffer had been a play, and I miss Jules Feiffer. He's recently departed us. But we shot the picture in the same vicinity of New York as both pictures. But that I'm happy to hear that. That was at a time. I mean, it's always now. It's always now. I'm grateful for the success of The Long Goodbye and it having endured a great deal of criticism and now is accepted somewhat as a bit of a masterpiece, because it really means a lot to me. Each one of us is a masterpiece. There's only one of us, one of each of us.
I was curious, what was Stuart Rosenberg like to work with?
He was quite good and quite experienced. And later on, when he was doing a film with Paul Newman, who was divine, he was one of Paul's directors. And Stuart Rosenberg, I don't know if it was the right picture for him. I think he was ambitious to take it on in relation to his sense of humor. I do know that the producers brought in a comedy writer, and like I said, I'm not a comedian, and I didn't need a comedy writer. And for a picture that is so out there, like Move is such an amazing thing. You realize we're moving all the time as we speak. Everything is moving. That's something. Stuart Rosenberg was nice. He liked me. I went to see Easy Rider with him when we were in production and an Easy Rider was being presented. And Stuart said to me he wished that he would have made Easy Rider. That's easy. Easy Rider was a sensation and made a lot of money. This is a business. And now I recall that guy, Ron O'Neill, he was there with a gorgeous woman, right? I like women, gorgeous women. Who doesn't? In the scene, in the picture.
Yeah, I think that's Gary Bean, Garrie.
Oh, yeah, she was beautiful. Also, I had a son or two move, and that scene where everybody's walking backwards and I'm walking forwards, is that the way it is? They put the film backwards in the camera. So I'm walking backwards and everybody's walking forwards. And then when they develop the film, it's the opposite. It looks like everybody's walking backwards and I'm walking forwards. But I didn't quite feel that was accomplished. The funny thing is that we shot it, that scene on 42nd Street, and you probably could see it on Broadway between 42nd and 43rd on a Saturday. And there was a playoff baseball game between the Baltimore Orioles, whoever was playing, and another championship, a qualified team. And my father and his friends, the Greensteins, they came to the set, and I said, whatever you do, don't look at me, because we're running it backwards. And when we develop the film, it'll show something peculiar. And we're doing everything backwards. And my father couldn't help himself. He looked at me and it film, I should be pleased. I didn't think earlier today, an hour and a half ago, when we spoke and you asked me about talking about the film, I had a dream that we'd be talking about this. And it's more than my work. Hiram Jaffe, what a character. And the women. Oh, yeah, I had a plant. I like my plant. I love vegetation.
Oh, I was asking about Joel Lieber, if you had met him. What was he like?
I guess he was a lot like Hiram Jaffe. I think he must have written the script, and then they had other writers. But I remember when they had, I touched on this, Pat McCormick, who was a great comic mind, come in, and I said, I don't need comedians to tell me what's funny. I mean, just have to be here. So like being stuck in the tar in New York and that. And we rehearsed a little bit, which was pretty funny, as if I understood what I was doing. Hiram Jaffe didn't understand what he was doing. He was just walking dogs and trying to participate in a life that he was living backwards. You can know what you're doing. That doesn't mean you understand it, because there is nothing more peculiar than life itself. That's what it was about life and our creation of the world and what life is. So I look at it again. Through the process of getting from 1970 to here in 2025 is Michelangelo Antonioni, who I don't think is with us, but he made pictures that resembled, to me, move.
That period of time at the end of the 70s, or end of the 60s, I should say, going into the 70s, felt like there was a lot of uncertainty in the world.
Is there more uncertainty than there is now? There isn't a bigger ego in space than the human. And that's Joel Lieber's sons. Well, because they came to visit me in the West Village where I live. 8 Morton Street. What a place. And then, of course, I befriended John Belushi when I started to appear on Saturday Night Live. And John Belushi and I understood one another. That didn't mean we understood ourselves. We understood one another, which is pretty amazing. To understand there has to be another to understand yourself. Because what we are on this level, we're all the same. And she moved to Morton Street, but I'd already gone because I could really give him the balance that I had earned and could express in my relationship with people. And that's part of what it was about. Now, to get back to John March, and you have a character that is a policeman, an authority figure, that was pretty funny. I mean, I didn't think it was so funny. It's terrifying and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, you mentioned Saturday Night Live, and yeah, you were on there. I think you're, what do they call it? Like the 5 Times Club or the 6 Times Club? Because you were like one of the most frequent guests.
I'm a 5-timer, but I believe I may have hosted it 6 times.
I imagine that was a pretty wild time back then.
Pretty wild time right now. I mean, it's a time it's always now. Back then, what was my age? Oh my goodness. It's so amazing then to be able to participate in movies, and the stories, and then having the opportunity to work with really some really great artists and technicians and craftsmen. That was great. I was invited to do the 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live, but I've got work that I'm doing, plus I'm still recuperating from having had COVID, which is quite interesting. I mean, interesting in relation to what we are and how we interrelate. Some of the most interesting people I've ever met, I've been in a fog about, but we love one another.
So I know you said you're working on the Lincoln Lawyer. Do you have anything else that you're working on? Are you going to be, I heard that there was supposed to be another Oceans film.
Oh, yeah, but I can't do that one. I heard that Clooney is fabulous in A Good Night and Good Luck, where he plays Edward R. Murrow. I know he's always interested in that, and I hear he's terrific on stage with that. And Clooney and I have been friends for 38 years.
Yeah, because he was in that the ER show that you did before he did his ER show.
I got on the air, and then we brought him in, and we met and we worked together. He's a great guy. I want to see pictures of his twins now in the present.
I think in 1970 you also did I Love My Wife.
I did that one too. I Love My Wife. That was David Walper, and that was Brenda Vaccaro, and also Angel Tompkins, and the great Dabney Coleman was in it. Dabney's no, and it was directed by Mel Stewart, and it's funny. It's not so funny, but it's humorous. The whole thing is humorous. It's humorous our being here. I hope you recognize that. Is that Bob Altman offered me McCabe and Mrs. Miller, and I was committed to making I Love My Wife, and I felt I had to. It's such a significant relationship between two consenting adults, no matter what. And I couldn't do McCabe and Mrs. Miller. But I can't have any regrets. Can you imagine still being here and being able to talk about this time and having my faculty? My goodness. And I still have a little touch. You remind me a little touch of the COVID fog. Just a little touch. It's okay. I mean, music, I've got a lot of music with me. My goodness gracious. I'm so grateful.
I was afraid for you when all of the fires were happening in L.A. Were you anywhere near that?
My friend lost her whole home. I was living in her home for 4 years. She lost everything. I lost some shirts and socks and a suit or something. But to be afraid, to be aware, oh my. And we haven't talked for quite some time. We've talked several times. Most likely, I don't know what. 7 o'clock is so fun. It's our invention. In that case, it's always 7 o'clock.
Just like it's always now.
That's the name of my sequel to The Long Goodbye.
Talked about how that has kind of kept you in the public eye, and just like how people still really love The Long Goodbye.
Give me a break here. I mean, the public eye. Let's see. In order to gain experience and knowledge, we'll put it this way, the two things that saved my life, besides my mother who bore me, was a movie camera and philosophy. And in I think it was the third movie. I don't know. I realized that the camera didn't give me problems. I gave me problems. The camera was my friend. It just reported what I did. It didn't lie. And so I'm so grateful for everything. And to be able to talk with us like this, gee whiz. Listen, last year, I did a cruise. It was like a Disney cruise, and it was also with, the movie channel. Kim Novak was on it too. And she's still gorgeous. She's still amazing. And everything is to share. And we have to be brave. We have to be courageous. And we must be honest.
I have to say that the one movie that I wish more people would see of your filmography is California Split, which I know was big at the time, but I mean, I wish more people were familiar with that one because it is so good.
It was never big. Come on, Joseph Raymond Walsh, the guy who wrote it, and the guy who I play in the movie, and the guy who plays the bookmaker in the movie. George Siegel played me, and then when we realized that Steve McQueen wouldn't be doing the picture, Altman called me in Munich, Germany, and asked if I'd play the other guy. And I said, I'll play anyone you want, but it's not my picture. It's Joey's picture. And I played it. You can't say that. Who knows how long anything lasts. But right now, like you said, it's always now. California Split. Gee whiz. And the other day, I was watching some movies that I hadn't seen, and two of them came on. One of them was Blood Simple, which was the Coen brothers' first film, and it's fabulous. And it's a film that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or depending on whatever, but that's what his name, has said to me because he likes film. He loved that film. And then they showed the 39 Steps, which I'd never seen. Oh my God, I still haven't finished it, but I spent real time with Alfred Hitchcock. Alfred Hitchcock was everything. He was so funny. He was so brilliant. He was such a genius, I didn't get a chance to work with him, but I spent a lot of time communicating with him.
If memory serves, you used to be really good friends with Groucho Marx, too.
I always will be really good friends with Groucho Marx. I'm a believer. Groucho is a part of us, as are all the brothers. Groucho gave me the best review I'll ever get. I was changing a light bulb over his bed, and Groucho said to me, That's the best acting I've ever seen you do. I'll never get a better review than that.
I can't imagine having conversations with him. And I also can't imagine having conversations with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Every time I've seen him in interviews, he just strikes me as one of the most intelligent people I've ever seen.
Well, it's about Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein, I played Albert Einstein. I've got to be able to look at it. If I can give you the name of it, because it was a series, and I played one of the subjects who happened to be Albert Einstein. And so Einstein is quoted, I'll give you three that I recall. Einstein is quoted as having said, "It's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I take more time with problems." That's one. Another one, Mr. Einstein's, was where the world ceases to be the scene of our personal hopes and wishes, where we face it as free beings, admiring, asking, and observing. There we enter the realm of art and science. And the last one that I know is, let's see, is for us believing physicists, the distinction between past, present, and future is only an illusion, even if a stubborn one. Again, it's always now. How well do you know the Ingmar Bergman picture?
It's been a while since I've seen it, but I saw it in college. One of my professors was writing a book about Bergman, Hugh Cohen, and so he was showing us a lot of Bergman films. That was the first time I saw it.
Bergman dismissed it. I think he dismissed it, but the picture has been slowly gaining recognition because it's all about the woman. It has nothing to do about the man. It's all about the woman. And I was so privileged and so blessed to be able to meet him and work with him and for him to want me to make his movie. So feel free to call me again. It seems to me that there's substance in our interview, and I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you very much. I really always appreciate the time that you take to talk with me. So thank you so much for sharing with me.
My privilege. Thank you.
All right, we are back, and we were talking about Move. It's so funny that you found my Goodreads review, because I don't even remember leaving that. I know I read more of Joel Lieber's stuff. I have like a whole shelf. Sorry, I keep pointing to the corner. I have a whole shelf of just all Elliott Gould stuff, and I've got all these like lobby cards and posters and things. Like, if I died tomorrow, they would think I was like some weird obsessed fan or something. Yeah, I remember liking his stuff, and I have to say that Move is a very easy book to read. It is pretty short, so like we were talking about earlier, a lot of this stuff is in that book, so they didn't have to do a ton. And then, to have Lieber adapt it himself and then, punch it up with Stan Hart. And I want to say somebody else was involved, uncredited. I think Gould might mention that in the interview, but I'll have to go back and look. But I can't remember who he said also was brought in to make some revisions as well. But it sticks pretty close from what I remember.
What was the genesis of this movie ending up with the director it did?
That's a really good question, because I would not have picked Stuart Rosenberg for this film.
And I think a lot of people wouldn't, including those who watched it.
Some of the pre-press hype for this is insane. Like 20th Century Fox was calling it a dirty Barefoot in the Park. Which, how do you, like, this is nothing like Barefoot in the Park. That is an insane comparison.
The Couple in New York kind of thing? Like, that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, very different. I've seen a lot of Rosenberg's work, mostly like the big hits kind of thing. I still haven't gone back and watched all of the stuff he did with Paul Newman because he and Newman really got along very well. I think they made 4 films together. WUSA seems like the one that I should be watching. I really like The Laughing Policeman. That's one of those Walter Matthau films that I just dig that a lot. And that's an interesting adaptation as well, because that's the Martin Beck character that Perwalu and Mashawal came up with. And he was in tons and tons of books. And then they made tons of TV shows and TV movies over in Sweden. So it was an interesting transplant of a Swedish detective over to the U.S. And I think it takes place in San Francisco. So it's not even a New York story. It's a San Francisco story. And my gosh, you will never forget the name of the victim after you watch the film. Like how you won't ever forget this Move song. Now It's With You Forever.
Look up and up.
But you will remember the name of the victim. I'm not going to say it, but they say it like 100 times in the movie. So you're just like, okay, whatever happened to Teresa Camarero or whatever?
I was trying to figure out how old Rosenberg was when he made this, because I'm like, maybe that's it. Maybe he was just older than the material, and that was where the disconnect. But he was born in 27. This was probably filmed in 69. So he was, what, 42, 43? Which, like, I'm 43. So to me, that's young. It doesn't feel like he shouldn't have been of the age for it. It just seems like it just... The humor, just tonally, there's something that didn't quite work. And whether that was in the editing room or whether that was in filming, it sounds, from the interviews I've read with Gould, it sounds like he felt it was during filming. I'm just not fully knowing the rhythm of a movie like this.
Maybe there was like some degree of studio meddling, because Pocket Money, a comedy, but it's more almost like French New Wave. I don't know if that's the best description of it, but Pocket Money works a lot better. I think that maybe had to do with the Terrence Malick script with Pocket Money. But I think Pocket Money works better as like a character piece in a comedy than this does. And I think maybe Rosenberg had a little bit more freedom with that. And I also think like Rosenberg is one of those guys that isn't brought up with like 70s filmmaking. Like, maybe not the greats, but this guy's better than I think most people realize. I was looking at his credits today. Mike mentioned Laughing Policeman. Of course, there's Cool Hand Luke, which was like the 60s. You look at it and like up until maybe WUSA, there's like solid, if there's not outright classics, there's like very solid films. And I think that even bled into the 80s. I think he's one of these guys that should be better recognized because there's so much good work there.
Forgot that he did the Amityville Horror, right?
Well, and then I remember I haven't seen Brubaker in a long damn time. And I don't know if I've ever seen Pope of Greenwich Village, but I think those were both pretty big when they came out in the early 80s. It was an odd choice. And then, yeah, I don't tend to think of him as a comic director. Is the April Fools, is that just a funny title or is that supposed to be a comedy as well? Because the poster looks a little tragic to me, but I'm not sure. It's just like the way Catherine Deneuve does not look very happy in the poster, and Jack Lemmon just seems creepy. But
the quick description on Wikipedia is a romantic comedy.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll check that out, but the poster doesn't bode well. I know not to judge.
I'll tell you, you want to have an appeal. Music by
Marvin Hamlish.
Marvin Hamlish.
Nice.
There you go.
The music for Cool Hand Luke is one of the best things ever. So maybe this guy just knew music very well.
It can make or break a film. Look at Halloween.
Then it's so strange. The poster campaign for Move, just Elliott Gould trapped naked in a Coke bottle. That seemed to be the only image. Even the Italian poster for it was the same darn thing of him trapped in the Coke bottle.
Mike's not lying. It is a Coke bottle with a Elliott Gould crouched in there. He's wearing shorts, so he's not fully naked. But it's Move, and then it says it's kinky, and then underneath the bottle in parentheses it says it's pure Gould. That's beautiful.
Oh yeah,
that is worthy of being framed on a wall right there.
That's got to be the name of his biography
or his fragrance.
Oh, nice.
He ever puts out a cologne line, pure Gould, pure Gould. There were a few movies or things that I wondered if we're influenced in any way by, or just things that I thought of. One was actually LA Story, just in terms of what that movie does with LA, as far as it being this somewhat absurd, very real, but this absurd element where a lot of the just daily interactions of going to dinner, or when he makes a dinner reservation in LA Story, when he's trying to get a reservation at this very fancy restaurant, and the manager has him come in, and it's this fantasy sequence that seems to be real in the movie because there are consequences to it, but it's so elevated. Like, that sort of thing reminded me a lot of Move and how the mover interactions are. The phone company, right? When he has the call with the phone company and he realizes by asking them to hold the line, he is putting the employee at the phone company's life at risk because he has to go under a pit to do this. And all of that, I was like, oh yeah, that's, I think, something that drew me to this a little more, of that sort of like slightly askew fantasy element. But I still wish it was just, I understood where it fit in the movie a bit more in terms of tone. And then some of the New York stuff, I was thinking a lot about Broad City when I watched it, because that show would do a lot of New York as this kind of occasionally magically gross place where there's some very bizarre things happening just under the surface. And that felt very much like Move. It was funny because I'm watching it and I felt like there should be more. The era of it, but no, I think once in my head I got LA Story there, even though I think they are totally unrelated. It's just a certain essence of handling a city this way is what kind of stayed in my head with that. Honestly, I haven't seen enough Woody Allen movies to think. Probably feels like a lot of Woody Allen.
I guess like Little Murders is a better version of Move.
Yeah, which a lot of people were comparing it to in the more like overall Gould retrospective kind of stuff. And it was only the next year. But when I brought that up to Gould himself, he was like, what?
Not pure gold?
I can see it too. Yeah, definitely. But like the image of him with all the blood on his shirt when he's in the subway car, it's just so different than what he looks like here with just green paint splotches all over himself.
Avocado green, no less.
Yes, exactly. He's ugly. Oh my God. This could only be the 1970s, right?
Very much. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of another movie where our main character just keeps getting phone calls and like just taunting phone calls. I guess it kind of reminds me a little bit like Local Hero, when the psychiatrist would call up Burt Lancaster's character and just denigrate him on the phone. But that he knows who it is. Like this one, I guess he knows that it's the mover, but again, we never see the mover's face. It's always obscured somehow.
I feel like I'm going to wake up tomorrow with 8 movies in my head of that one. There's like a bunch of different directions I think you could take what other movies are like Move in. And one of them is just like, yeah, the harried guy that just can't seem to has to book something, and every time he tries to do it, he can't. I think movies about writers, which is something that I generally try to avoid because it's not that interesting to watch what is usually this kind of guy, a man, a heterosexual guy going through it, and women are throwing themselves at him, but he's going through something, so he's not ready for it. And I find those usually very insufferable. But I feel like there's definitely movies like that this very much can be compared to. I think the weirdness of this one makes it more interesting. But
well, there's the Colin Farrell
classic phone booth where he gets...
True. That is true. Involves definitely.
Or the beginning of Miracle Mile. Of course, there's like all of the killer movies like Black Christmas or I don't know. I've never seen The Black Phone, but I imagine that has something to do with it as well. Or like When a Stranger Calls, all those things. But yeah, I'm trying to think of another movie where just like a regular person is being menaced by somebody calling him up and taunting him all the time.
There's something there, and I can't think of what it is.
Maybe it's mostly Zach is who I'm thinking of.
Hey, just a sec, I'll check. Amanda Hug and Kiss? Hey, I'm looking for Amanda Hug and Kiss. Why can't I find Amanda Hug and Kiss?
Maybe your standards are too high.
Little SOB. If I ever find out who you are, I'm gonna shove a sausage down your throat and stick starving dogs in your butt.
All right, we're going to take another break and play a preview for next week's show right after these brief messages.
Lake Shippadew, Ontario. This will be the best summer of my life.
4 friends on a vacation.
A little R&R, some fishing.
Good fishing on Chippewa. Used to be a lot more people come here for the fishing.
2 Chinese investors.
I may only have a grade 6 education, but I watch the news, and I understand the importance of global trading partners. They're in the speech of the East, and your business will go nowhere but up.
1 shady deal.
You're doing a great job. My man at the ministry tells me they're storing all the results in their main computer.
A one-eyed gas station attendant.
I know Willie T better than the inside of my mouth.
1 psychotic pike.
What an ugly creature. Oh, let go, you bastard!
Many deaths.
If I was you, I wouldn't be taking any moonlight walks. You're safer inside until this thing gets sorted out, and it will be.
Psycho pike, the fish with attitude.
That's right, we'll be back next week with a look at the lost Canadian film Psycho Pike. Until then, I want to thank my co-hosts Mike and Emily. So, Mike, what is keeping you busy, sir?
Before we get into that, I just want to say, if you want to talk more about Elliott Gould, I'm like a wealth of knowledge about films like Matilda, Dead Men Don't Die, Hits, his cameo in Busted with Corey Feldman. If you ever want to talk about these films, I'm more than happy and willing to discuss them with you on the podcast.
Mike, I have so many interviews about the film Matilda. We definitely need to do an episode about that. And I'm being 100% serious because I talked with Albert Ruddy. I talked with the man who's actually in the Matilda suit. I'm trying to remember who else I talked to from that movie because it feels like I had 3 interviews. And then I have a feeling that Elliott would love to talk about that one too.
I would like to be involved with that should it ever happen. So absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen. I'll put it on the schedule for 2026, and this time we won't have to wait an entire other administration to get to it.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Believe it or not, I'm still writing. I'm in Shock Cinema number 65, trying to get material together for the issue 66, which I have no idea what's coming out sometime this year, probably. And I recently got a copy of Sonic Sewer. That's Robin Bushy's new music scene. I used to do Cinema Sewer. I've got an article in that about Daryl Dragon, a.k.a. the captain from Captain and Tennille. But that's about it for me for now. But I'm just happy to still be writing.
And Emily, how about yourself?
When I'm not spending hours putting on and removing my false eyelashes, you can usually find me writing at deadlydollshouse.com, where I just usually write about mostly bad, occasionally good movies. And then on the podcasting front, you can hear me at The Feminine Critique, which is the podcast I do with the fantastic one and only Christine Makepeace, where we cover movies. We actually did interviews with filmmakers, which is something we haven't done in a very long time, with filmmakers of an independent horror film called Bystanders. So that was very fun. And you can always hear more of us just talking about movies.
Thank you so much, folks, for being on the show. Thanks to everybody for listening. If you want to hear more of me shooting off my mouth, check out some of the other shows that I work on. They're all available at weirdingwaymedia.com. Thanks especially to our Patreon community. If you want to join the community, visit patreon.com/projection booth. Every donation we get helps the projection booth take over the world.
Woke up and found a pigeon had landed on my bed. It brought a little message. Move, that's all it said. I stepped into the bathtub. A bottle was afloat. Inside there was a paper. Move, somebody wrote. So I pull the shades and lock the door at night. Coming through the keyhole, slipping in the window. Could be they're trying to tell me something. I thought I'd do something. Walking do me good. I take a look up at the sky. There it is. Move, move, move. something, I thought I'd do some thinking. A walk would do me good. I'd take a look up at the sky. There it is, move, move.